Rivkah Grajaver was born in 1892 in Pultusk, Poland, which was a small Jewish village. It was right in the middle of the territorial battle between Poland and Russia, and when Rivkah came to America, her home was actually counted as a territory of Russia. Her father was a rabbi and was very well respected by the community. Back then, especially in Jewish surroundings, rabbis were seen as scholars. They were equivalent to professors in that they were the most knowledgeable and respectable people one could know. Rivkah's mother was a strong woman who, as seen in this photo, has a powerful stance and a confident air. In the picture as well is Rivkah and two of her sisters. Not much is known about her family other than they stayed in Poland until their deaths. Unfortunately, most of them had horrible ends. The smallest girl in the photo died of tuberculosis in her teens, and Rivkah's mother was one of the 6 million victims of the Holocaust. Apparently, there were 2 eyewitnesses to Rivkah's mother's demise. Years after World War II, my grandma, Rivkah's oldest child, met a brother and sister who were also in the concentration camps and saw Rivkah's mother being marched into one of the large ovens. She had come with an infant, probably one of her grandchildren, and since a small child was also not valuable, they were both taken to an early end. Before all of this, Joseph Busner, a Jew from a nearby village, was pining to go to America. He saw there were tensions between non-Jews and the Jewish people, and did not want to stick around to see that play out. Despite his father's wishes, he came to Brooklyn, New York in 1909 at age 18, and lived with Rivkah's aunt in an apartment she owned. Joseph had known Rivkah's family since he was a child, and 10 years after he left Poland, he sent for Rivkah to come to America to be his wife. Rivkah, by this point, was an old maid at age 28. She was probably not going to get another marriage proposal at such an old age, so she came to America and married Joseph. Whether Rivkah knew this is uncertain, but Joseph had been married before. When he was still in Poland, at around age 17, he was married by way of a shidduch, or an arranged marriage, which is very common at the time. Joseph had a son with his first wife, and nothing is known about the child or the mother. Only one thing is for certain: something went wrong. Either they got a divorce, which was very difficult in an Orthodox Jewish marriage, or the mother and child had something horrible happen to them, because Joseph wouldn't have just abandoned them. Whatever the case, Joseph was seen as a single man when he went to America, and married Rivkah in 1920, shortly after her arrival. Living in Brooklyn was very different from the small villages in Poland, and there were a lot of different cultures mixing together, which was overwhelming for Rivkah. However, there were social gatherings for people from similar backgrounds as her, and where there was polka dancing, music, as well as Orthodox ceremonies and services. It was a great chance for Rivkah to catch up with people she had met both in Poland and America. Since she only spoke Yiddish, she felt isolated a lot of the time, but felt comfortable when she was around others like herself. On October 10, 1921, Joseph and Rivkah had their first child, a little girl named Frida. Their second child, Nat, was born on December 12, 1923, and their third child, Philip, was born March 26, 1927. There is no picture of Philip because by the time he was a toddler, the Great Depression had started, and the family could not afford to take a photo of him. For a long time, the family thought Philip was born on March 23rd, not the 26th. At the time, families gave birth to children in their homes, so there were no official staff members at hospitals documenting the births by the minute. It was only years later, when Philip was practicing as a lawyer, that he found documents showing he was born on the 26th. Funny enough, I was born on March 23rd, 1994, 67 years later. The family needed somebody to be born on that day, and who was I to refuse?
The Great Depression brought huge strife to Rivkah and her family. However, she was very good at stretching money to the fullest. The 5-person family never skipped a meal and still kept kosher, even though it was hard. The family still found a way to keep their core values. If they were unable to do so, they probably would have lost all the spirit and fire they had within them. When faced with such poverty, if you have to abandon your identity, what else do you have? Rivkah was very meticulous and always kept a clean house, a clean body, and a clean family. She was a perfectionist who wouldn't settle for any less than pristine. She was very skilled at making clothing and would take hours to just make the paper patterns for clothing before starting to cut fabric. All the effort paid off because she was able to make a lot of the clothing her three children wore during the Depression, which naturally saved them a lot of money. It is more than likely that her mother taught her how to sew when she was in Poland and might have helped to make money for her family with this skill. No one is certain when it started, probably with the hardships she faced in Poland as a child, but she began to show signs of mental illness.
Come Friday, we prepared for the Sabbath, and that floor got scrubbed or whatever. And in those days, there'd be a steam pipe. I don't know if you've ever seen them, that ran from the street level apartment clear to the top of the 3 or 4 floors up, and it was heat. It was just a metal pipe like this, and it was sealed at the seal. I wish I could show it. And that was part of the heating system. Besides, there were these radiators, the radiators that stood up, usually near a window. And one Friday night, when my father came home, and of course any complaint she made, he ran to fix it. And she told him that the people who lived above us had a little door. They did. And here she just finished scrubbing her whole floor for Shabbos Friday, and everything's cooked, and she can't, when it gets dark, they have to light the candles. She can't be doing work. And after she did all this, and the woman let the dog pee on the, how a male dog pees up against something, and her dog had peed on a pipe, and it came through and dirtied her kitchen floor. The fact is, those pipes were well sealed. There was a round metal thing that was almost nailed to the floor, and the same thing with the ceiling, and it just wasn't possible. But my father, without thinking, went upstairs and spoke to the people. My wife just said, neither one of my parents were that way. But he asked, is there a possibility that could happen? Well, he knew it couldn't. And they said no, and he I don't know where he took it from there, but that's all. But that's how it started, little things.
So she hallucinated, essentially.
Yeah.
She was eventually diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia and was taken to New York State Mental Hospital in Brooklyn to be treated. The first time she went, she did not stay there for long. There were not any real treatments at that time, and since she was not dangerous, there was no reason to keep her in the hospital. Joseph did not want her to be institutionalized, not only because he adored her, but because his children would have probably been taken to foster homes or orphanages.
At the time, like almost to herself. Sure, this is going on in the world. And yeah, I heard what she said. We had been to somebody's wedding, let's say, and she was beautifully dressed and accepted by all. People admired her. The relatives all thought she was something. But when we'd get home, we'd get the whole rundown. She knew who sat where and who said what and what it meant. And a lot of what it meant was aimed at her, some negative something or other, or someone she didn't like who had, but nothing that she would ever say to them and say, why are you talking that way?
She wasn't confrontational, like your dad wasn't either.
No, but in the house, her own home, she talked constantly to no one in particular. We all heard it. It's like she was just telling us something she was aware of, and she was telling us, and we learned to just ignore it.
Sadly, she eventually had to be brought to a hospital for good. Joseph was growing older, and so were their children. Nat and Philip had both gone to college and gotten jobs, and Frida, after going to Detroit for World War II, came back to New York to take care of her father. Rivkah was officially institutionalized in the late 1940s, when she was in her 50s. Sadly, her condition didn't get any better, and my grandmother was told in 1956 that she had caught pneumonia. She was also told that Rivkah would not survive the winter, but she did. Later that year, Frida went to visit her mother. She knew that Rivkah was on her way out of her life and wanted to say goodbye. At this point, Joseph had already passed away a few years earlier, but Rivkah was too out of touch to know this. When Frida visited, Rivkah was very polite and kind, but did not remember her daughter. The nurse even started to remind her, but my grandmother said to leave it be, because this was the calmest she had seen her mother in decades. They had a nice, cordial conversation, and that was the last time they saw each other. Rivkah Grajaver died in 1959 at age 63. Although her life was hard and brief, Rivkah made so many lives possible, including my own. She and Joseph not only made our lives possible, but helped pass the Jewish faith down my family despite the Holocaust and all of the persecution against them. I'm so grateful they were able to do so, because I learned so much from my Jewish education. I have the drive, passion, and ambition that my great-grandmother had. There is a belief in the Jewish faith that you cannot pray for success, you can only pray that your efforts will pay off. That distinction has always reminded me that you make your own success. The world does not give you anything, and that was certainly true for Rivkah and her family. So I want to say thank you to Rivkah by now saying the Jewish prayer for healing and peace among the deceased. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, ve'alma divrach hirutei ve'amlich malchutei, b'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kori ve'imru, Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach le'alam u'amei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudesha barichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama Rabbah min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen.